He didn't say it quietly. He said it in front of the microphones. In front of the cameras. In front of every reporter who had gathered in that post-game room expecting the standard answers. The deflections. The professional acknowledgments that yes, Ohtani is a great hitter, yes, it was a difficult situation, yes, we will make adjustments and move forward. Drew Rasmussen did not give them the standard answers. What he gave them instead stopped the room. Shohei wasn't being shut down. He was just reading the game. The reporters wrote it down. Some of them looked up from their notebooks immediately, the way journalists do when a quote arrives that doesn't sound like anything they expected to hear. Because that sentence was not the language of a pitcher protecting his ego after giving up a game-winning home run. It was not the careful, media-trained response of someone trying to minimize what had just happened on the field. It was something rarer than that. It was an honest confession from a professional who had just stood 60 feet and 6 inches away from Shohei Ohtani, had tried everything he knew how to try, and had walked away from that experience with a conclusion that he felt compelled to share publicly. And that conclusion was not about his own failure. It was about Ohtani's mind. Let's rebuild the moment from the beginning. Because the home run itself, number 15, game-winning, the kind that empties a stadium of all its ambient noise before refilling it completely with something louder, was already a story before Rasmussen walked into that press conference room. The ball had already traveled its full distance. The crowd had already erupted. The Dodgers had already claimed the victory that the home run secured. The game was finished. But Rasmussen wasn't finished with what he had experienced. He had been on that mound. He had made his decisions. He had chosen his pitches with the careful deliberateness that a major league pitcher brings to a critical at-bat against the most dangerous hitter in baseball. He had not thrown those pitches carelessly. He had not arrived at that moment without a plan. He had a plan. He executed it. And Ohtani had read every single piece of it before it arrived. That is what Rasmussen was trying to explain when he sat down in front of the microphone. That the problem wasn't the pitch. The problem was that Ohtani already knew the pitch was coming. To understand why that confession caused a stir in the American media, you have to understand what it means for a pitcher to admit that an opposing hitter was reading him. Because pitching at the major league level is built on a foundation of unpredictability. On the ability to keep hitters off balance. On the essential premise that no matter how talented a hitter is, if the pitcher can consistently disrupt timing and location and movement, the hitter cannot make consistent, high-quality contact. That premise is the bedrock of pitching strategy. Rasmussen was saying that against Ohtani, in that at-bat, in that moment, the bedrock had cracked. Not because the execution failed. Not because the velocity was down or the movement was flat or the sequencing was poor. But because the hitter on the other side of the exchange was operating at a level of cognitive processing that made the pitcher's plan legible before it was executed. Was seeing things in Rasmussen's mechanics, his grip, his release point, his body language, that translated into information. Into anticipation. Into preparation so precise that when the pitch arrived, Ohtani was already there. Already waiting. Already ready to do what he did to it. The American media understood immediately why this admission was significant. Because pitchers don't say this. Not publicly. Not with cameras running. The professional code of baseball is built partly on the maintenance of competitive mystery. On the understanding that what happens between pitcher and hitter stays between pitcher and hitter. That you don't hand the rest of the league a detailed explanation of exactly how you were beaten. Rasmussen broke that code. Deliberately. And the reason he broke it was because what he had witnessed felt too important to reduce to a standard answer. He spoke slowly in that room. Not because he was searching for the right words to protect himself. But because he was searching for the right words to accurately describe something that had happened to him on a baseball field that he was still processing. A reporter asked him to walk through the at-bat. To describe what he had been trying to do and what had gone wrong. And Rasmussen nodded. He placed his hands together on the table. And he began. He had gone in with a plan to work Ohtani away. To use the outer edge of the zone to minimize the pull-side power that had produced 14 home runs already this season. To force him to reach. To create contact on pitches that even Ohtani's extraordinary bat speed couldn't fully turn on. It was a reasonable plan. It was the kind of plan that works against elite hitters with regularity. He started the at-bat executing it. The first pitch went where he wanted it. The second pitch went where he wanted it. And in both cases, Ohtani took them. Watched them. Made no visible attempt to compete for either pitch. And in the watching, in the taking, something had been communicated back to Rasmussen that he didn't fully recognize in the moment. Ohtani was not being passive. Ohtani was not being passive. He was studying. After the second pitch, Rasmussen said, his voice dropping slightly, "I thought I had him where I wanted him. I thought he was going to keep taking. So I came back to the same location one more time." He paused. And he was already there. Already set up for it. He didn't lunge at it. He didn't adjust. He just hit it. Like he knew. The room was quiet for a moment. Because he did know, Rasmussen said. That's what I realized afterward. He wasn't being shut down in those first two pitches. He was letting me show him the pattern. And then he used it. That explanation traveled fast. By the time the post-game shows were running, the clip of Rasmussen's confession had already been pulled and replayed. Analysts were examining it. Former players were weighing in. The particular combination of humility and precision in what Rasmussen had said made it impossible to dismiss as a defeated pitcher making excuses. It didn't sound like an excuse. It sounded like a scouting report. Because what Rasmussen was describing, an elite hitter using early at-bat pitches not to compete for contact but to gather information, is something that baseball people have long understood exists at the highest levels of the sport. The best hitters in history have always done it to some degree. They have always used takes and fouls and early count swings to build a picture of what a pitcher is doing, what they're capable of, what they will return to under pressure. But the speed at which Ohtani does it. The precision. The ability to build that picture across two pitches and then deploy the information in real time against a major league pitcher executing a prepared plan. That is what made Rasmussen's description land differently than a standard acknowledgement of an elite hitter's abilities. He wasn't saying Ohtani was talented. He was saying Ohtani was thinking faster than he was. The American commentators who had already called him unstoppable after home run number 15 now had something more specific to attach that word to. Because unstoppable as a physical description, the bat speed, the exit velocity, the raw power that sends baseballs into distances that require the stadium scoreboard to confirm, is one thing. Unstoppable as a cognitive description is something else entirely. It means that even if you neutralize the physical, even if you find a way to take away the pull-side power and limit the damage from his most dangerous zones and force him to beat you with his weaker areas, even then, you are still competing against a mind that is processing the exchange faster than yours is. Still competing against a hitter who is using your own strategy as a data set. Who is learning from your decisions faster than you can rotate through them. That is a different kind of unstoppable. That is the kind that makes opposing pitching coaches sit in film sessions and feel the particular discomfort of watching their best prepared plans be read, decoded, and punished in real time. Rasmussen was asked, toward the end of the press conference, whether this experience would change how he approaches Ohtani in a future matchup. Whether he would try something fundamentally different next time. Whether the confession he had just made publicly would translate into an adjusted strategy. He thought about it. Genuinely thought about it. Not the kind of pause that precedes a rehearsed answer, but the kind that precedes an honest one. "I'll make adjustments," he said. "That's what you have to do. You have to keep changing the picture."